Hey everyone, Chris here for Thomann Guitars and Basses. In today's Guitar Tech Tips Q&A video, we'll talk about treble bleed mods versus 50s wiring for strats, about float roses, about guitar pickup setups and pickup heights, guitar nuts, etc. Let's start with the most fun subject, float rose and floating tremolos in general. Man, some people really do hate them, and I understand why. For example, Matt Green 534 writes, "Float rose sucks so much ass. Tell everyone you know, do not buy a float rose. They do not keep tune, and changing strings is a pain in all kinds of parts of your body." That is, I don't fully agree. Well, I mostly don't agree, but it is really tricky. So if it's your first guitar, maybe try to avoid floating tremolos, because it's a thing of its own. Like if you have a guitar with fixed bridge and easy string changes and tuning capabilities, that's already a lot to handle. You have to learn to use that tool, right, to make music with it. Float rose and all kinds of low pro edge and whatever you want to call them, that's a whole different story, another step up in complexity. So yeah, maybe not as your beginner's guitar. Talking about floating bridges and float roses and low pro edges and everything, let's talk about the Ibanez PIA. Gavin Gravel R2M5V, his handle is very close to Ibanez guitar model names. I brought a PIA. And every time I tune her with the head tuners, so with the machine heads, why does it go back out of tune half a step? Anyone help, please. It's all a balance act, really. There are the springs at the back. This one doesn't have, of course, but you'll have springs in the back, strings in the front, and the whole bridge is floating on two studs, or a number of studs. If it's an old school tremolo, then on 6 screws, it's the same thing. It's in balance. As soon as you tighten one of the strings, the other strings will counteract, so go flat, which is of course even more aggressive on like modern floating bridges, such as the Ibanez versions of float roses and Schaller's and float rose originals, everything, because they're just so sensitive. As soon as you touch the trem bar, it goes trrr, trrr, which of course means that every change of tension immediately has some sort of an action on the other strings. So yeah, if you tune the E string, all the 5 others will go out of tune and you will have to retune the guitar, I don't know, 7 times, 10 times, 15 times until all the strings are actually in tune and stay in tune. And then you can lock the locking nut and fine-tune the strings for the next couple of days or weeks with the fine-tuners on the tremolo itself. Nick V.V asks, so we need to make some specific angle in the nut or what? We're talking about this sitar buzz. When you pick a string, and especially when it's open, it just has this weird sitar-like buzz. And I mentioned in that video that if that happens, that's usually because the nut, that slot in the nut for the string is just completely parallel to the string itself that runs above the fretboard. If you want to avoid that, you need to make sure that the slot inside the nut is slightly angled towards the headstock, so that the spot, the end point where the string starts to vibrate, is this inner end of the nut. Parallel, not good. Slight angle is what you want to have. And the question is, if you need a specific angle. No, you don't. You can if you want to do it all scientifically, but what matters is that it's not completely parallel to the strings. That would be fatal. And one more comment on guitar nuts. This is a friendly one that came under our video on guitar nut replacement. There's a timestamp at the beginning. Thomann X-Man writes, 117, is this guy trolling? How would you knock a nut out that way that's in a slot which is perpendicular to the direction you're tapping the nut? So in the video, in case you cannot remember what happened at 117 in the video that's like 2 years old, I am knocking the nut with a wooden block in that direction, because that's a Gibson where there's no more fretboard behind the nut. You cannot do that on a Fender style guitar or like an original Fender, because as you can tell, there is some fretboard after or behind the nut, which means that the nut sits in a slot. In that situation, you have to knock it out sideways, of course, or try to go under the edge with something like a flathead screwdriver or something like that, and carefully sort of knock it up so that it leaves the slot and comes out to like upwards. This is my DIY guitar. It would also work that way. I would have to knock it in that direction, which is exactly what I'm saying in the video. So why would I be trolling if I said, hey, careful, if you have a Fender or something that sits in a slot, hit it out sideways. And then comes 117, where I hit it out towards the headstock, because that's a different guitar. So I think I'm not trolling. I think you should just watch the video that you're watching, and you know, that saves you some comments. Let's talk about pickup height. This comment came under a video where we talked to Maddie, John Petrucci's guitar tech, and it's about the Majesty Earnable Music Man pickup height. Danny Valorant7241 wrote a comment, and he has the strings set up to 1 millimeter, which is at the 12th fret, which is what John Petrucci also does. It's a fairly low setup. It's a very comfortable setup, and wants to know how he should set up the pickups. I rewatched the video and I didn't find a section where Maddie mentioned like numbers or anything. So I guess they go for a reasonable setup is what I would go for, which is like about 3 millimeters. That's a good starting point at least. If you push down the strings at the last fret and then measure the distance between the string and the top of the pickup, that should be like around 3 millimeters for both to start with, and then you'll see if you love that sound. If it sounds a little too hot, a little too boomy and too presency, then it's a little too close. Then you can lower the pickup a little more, 1 millimeter or something. Like tiny adjustments do a lot, actually, tone-wise and output-wise. And also, if the neck pickup is too loud compared to the bridge pickup, then of course you can rise up the bridge pickup a little closer to like 2.5 millimeters distance between the string and the top of the pickup, and lower the neck pickup to balance out the volume. So it really is up to your taste, because those pickups that John uses are fairly hot, like medium to hot pickups, which work even if you go low with the pickups. But if you want a lot of output, like a super aggressive sound, you can get fairly close to the strings. Of course, there's a limit, and you'll hear when it starts to sound too weak or just too hot. And the last comment is from Les7118, and he's asking about the about strats and how you can sort of avoid losing the presence or treble when you go down with the volume. A 50s wiring is something that is really hard to do on a traditional Strat though, because you have the single coils, that's not the issue, but also you have 3 pots. And the way those are wired, those 2 tone knobs and that 1 volume knob, kind of doesn't allow you to go for a 50s wiring. It's just a different kind of connection between those pots. So it could be possible maybe, but let's not get that deep. It's a rabbit hole. Usually if Strat players want to avoid losing treble when turning down the volume, they don't mess around with the 50s wiring. They go for a very subtle treble bleed. And for that, I use a my Strat. What was the value? It's a €1 piece. It's a very affordable capacitor, 220 picofarad capacitor. That's what I wire on the volume pot. That's all, just the capacitor, no resistance, and that works for me on my Strat so well. It's a perfect balance wherever the volume pot is. It doesn't get too trebly. If I turn down, it doesn't get muddy. It's just the same sound. The only thing that changes is the volume. Thanks for all the comments and all the cool questions. Keep them coming. I check on them every now and then, and you might end up in one of these Q&A videos. Don't be afraid of setting up and fixing guitars yourself. It's time to become your own guitar tech.